Oh, hello, everyone. Welcome to the 40th episode of Vito X DINO, the podcast you love to hate and you hate to love. My name is Vito Delsante. His name is Dean Haspiel.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dean Haspiel. Hi, Vito.
Hi. Let's talk about antimatter. We're a little over halfway in the goal right now. We're looking at it right now. I didn't refresh my page, but we are at $5,500 out of 9,000. So on a nice clip. How would it, did you get the word out at New York Comic Con? Like, did people respond to you and stuff?
Yeah, and actually, I learned something at near Comic Con that I want to get into shortly. But I had made those little business cards that I
Mm.
hand out to a bunch of people. What's weird? I wasn't very aggressive. Near Comic Con was an interesting time for me. I didn't feel this is counterintuitive, but I didn't feel like being a salesman,
Yeah.
you know? And it's hard to retail your comics as a creator, and you and I have been doing it for years. Everyone there is doing it. Everyone has a way of doing it. But I was just paying attention to like certain details throughout the 4 days. It's 4 days, you know.
I think
um
I think a lot of times, at least reason why I don't like doing huge shows like San Diego or New York or like any of the big shows is because like it's entirely too much spectacle. There's too much to see and too much to absorb and too much like so much stimuli coming at you every 5 seconds, and it's
it,
hard.
it it's unrelenting. It's
Yeah,
unrelenting,
yeah,
and you can't escape it. My best friend Mike Houston, for the first time, came to,
oh wow.
well, I was gonna say a Comic Con, but definitely the first time he came to New York Comic Con. And I think when he finally arrived at my table in Artist Alley, and he just couldn't, you get in the doors, where do you go? Like, I
Yeah,
get it. It's crazy. He got there and he already looked at me and he wanted to go home.
yeah,
He didn't
yeah.
even want to deal. So I get it. And so I said, no, no, just kind of settle in. I know it's crazy. I brought him over to his favorite cartoonist, Michael Golden. He
Hmm.
bought some pieces from Michael Golden. I had him meet Lee Weeks. He bought a piece from Lee
Oh
Weeks,
yeah, Lee's great.
they're the best, right? And then I saw Dennis Cowan. I mean, this is the thing, because I was trying to like promote Antimatter, my Kickstarter, and because I had 4 comics to sell, and I was trying to make my half of my table back, because I shared it with Dan Goldman, as
Yeah.
we saw last week. He's actually out having dinner with Ron Wimberly right now.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, we got to get Ron on the show.
Yeah, we definitely do.
But like, this was probably my weakest New York Comic Con in terms of money, and I hate to talk about money, but you kind of have to talk about
Well,
money because
that's
that's why
it's a
we're
bit
there.
it's a business, Dean. Like this is
It's a
our
business.
business, and
Hmm.
the unfortunate, fortunate side of business is that it's about money. How much money
Right,
did you make? How much money did you lose? How much did you put in versus how much
right.
you got back? So yeah, I mean, I
But
I was gonna say I always judge a convention on how much I make versus how much I put out. You know what I mean? Like, had I, let's say didn't cancel Baltimore this year, I would have spent, I don't know, 500 to $1,000 on new comic, some kind of other tchotchke to give away, to play with, or, to, sell and stuff. So it's, how do you make that money back? Especially, that's why the thing I think that I know for a fact in terms of at least Baltimore is that tabling with you and with Charlie and with Peter and Whitney and whoever else ends up being at the table is always better because you get this wider swath of people stopping and looking at your stuff. Whereas with New York Comic Con, it's all about placement and it's all about, is everybody going to leave the main floor to come to my floor, to the artist alley, and will they have money when they get here? You know,
right, and they get to your side of the room because it's so big. So
yeah.
the way New York Comic Con is set up is it really is 2 cons.
Hmm.
It's Artist Alley, which, for lack of a better term, you can almost call it the indie Comic Con of New York Comic Con, right? Even though they have so many superstars lined up, all these artists that are getting commissions, or there's Frank Miller, like, and then there's a bunch of us, like, and I'm in the middle somewhere where I've done mainstream, but I'm more indie than I am mainstream. And then I got my 3 feet of space at a 6 foot table, and then all around me, and this is where I'm bad. I don't have the giant signs and the Klieg lights and the dancing monkeys and everything that draw you to your table. I literally have 4 comic books on little stands.
Mhm.
Um, and we're all vying for people's attention as you do. And it was weird because you know we were in the ass end of the room, is the way. And I hate to say it, like I always figure out, well, wherever you are, it should be fine. But it does matter, actually, the
Absolutely.
geography. So like we were like literally, you could see the people that were showing up were very tired by the time they got to us.
Yeah,
I never made it to the flow to the show floor once
been there.
in 4 days.
Yeah,
And it was
I've been that
that's
situation.
crazy. Like I didn't see Bill Sienkiewicz, who's usually on the floor, and a bunch of some of the publishers. And sometimes I've brokered deals that way, or
Yeah,
gotten a number or the interest from an editor or something. So I wasn't even jockeying for any kind of work in that way. And like I said, I wasn't super aggressive about selling myself either. What I did get were like you know diehard True Blue fans,
yeah,
that show up, and friends and family and peers. And that's great. And I try to take a picture when I could. And then there was, when I did make it around the room for a minute, I try, and then we were all talking. In fact, I don't know if this will be in the review of the show, but even the big artists, I won't mention names, were asking me, "Hey, how are you doing? Are you making money at this show?" I was like, "Not really,"
yeah.
uh, but they were like, "Me neither."
Mm.
So I was like, huh. And then I'm thinking, well, the economy, everything's expensive. It's gotten so hard. And so I was looking around me, and like two things hit me. Uh, and then I had a revelation. Uh, the things that hit me were the obvious things. Like I don't have a TV show or a movie franchise. I don't have toys.
No.
I don't do the merchandise thing. And that's what leads to next to us, there was a booth that had a line always, but they were selling stickers, buttons, and prints.
Yeah.
There was no
Comic.
story, no comics, no story. Or maybe the story is what you ingratiated the image with, or maybe there's a backstory to it and you just want a totem or some kind of token of an item. And then I was noticing other artists that don't have a Spider-Man or a Batman. you know People might check it out but then they move on. And we've been talking about a lot about this, Vito, which is like, you know uh who's the reader? Who's
Yeah.
reading this stuff anymore? I know that, I have a pile of stuff I want to read, but I want to read it.
Mhm.
I'm not going to buy something because of cool art. I'm going to buy it because I feel like there might be a cool story there. But that's just me, right?
Sure,
And I know
sure.
how to immerse. But what I realized the revelation was, and I'm hoping I don't know how to totally monetize this or capitalize on it, but my takeaway is that the reader is my publisher.
Oh
I
yeah.
was thinking about that. That is who publishes me, is the reader. And as we've said in the past, my sentence isn't finished until you receive it, or my work, that isn't finished until you receive it. So my sentence ends with either a period, a question mark, an exclamation, or an ellipsis, based on how you react to it.
Right.
And so what does that mean in terms of marketing and publishing and a business? I don't know. But I feel like in some ways, and this is true, I think a lot of companies are appealing to the reader more than ever. Meaning and including them in the decision making of the story that nowadays.
I think one of the things that I've come to not necessarily understand or accept, but I've just kind of like, because it's a hard thing to um it's hard to quantify it. So it's hard to, so I can't really accept it and I can't really, whatever. But it's that even at our table at Baltimore, let's say, where Charlie has a display of like, superhero books. And then you have Whitney with her like little, like, I wouldn't say mini comics, but
Diary comics.
right.
Yeah,
And then like there's you with like almost like a tabloid sized magazine size. Like it's catering to almost every type of reader. Do you know what I
sure.
mean? Which is what leads to the success individually of all of us throughout a weekend. But
Right.
if you take that same idea and you take us and put us at separate tables in Artist Alley, where we're all kind of vying for ourselves, I don't think we're nearly as successful because I don't think that people shop that way. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like you might go to a mall if they still exist, and go, oh, here's the shoe store. It's right next to the Hallmark store, which is next to the record store. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
you kind of plot out your trip that way. But because people don't shop like that anymore,
Hmm.
shopping is now either big box stores like a Target or a Walmart, or it's online shopping and you know exactly what you're getting.
Hmm.
Our readers, our shoppers have changed with the times. Now,
Hmm.
when you're thinking about it as well, our audience is aging out. Like, for, most comic books are, purchased by men in their 40s or up. The women that are buying comics are buying, niche comics and manga. Um, there are niche audiences like trans audiences, gay audiences, black audiences, and stuff that are buying niche things as well. So
Hmm.
to be a, uh, I don't know, white male creator in this day and age, it's harder to capture that audience, like those other niche audiences at once because we're not used to what's funny is we write broad to try to attract everybody, but somehow we don't attract everybody. We only attract the same 40-year-old,
Well,
50.
there's a whole optics thing, identity and authenticity thing
Right.
going on in the world more than ever. I think, and I think you're like this, Vito, which is why we're friends and do things together, and Charlie McKelvey and other people like that. So we're more communal
Yeah.
in our efforts. Like I'm, I don't know if codependent is the right word, but I might be more codependent. Like I don't, when I get a table, I like to share my table as I
Mhm.
do when I can, and so, maybe that kind of diffuses or blurs the waters for me for my stuff. But I'm always about, if you like my stuff, you might like their stuff, and hopefully vice versa, right? Like
Right.
the variety show,
Yeah,
the
but
salon.
that works to our benefit. To someone like Chris Miskevich, who's never, like, since I've been at the table, hasn't been at the table, but at an adjacent table, he might not get that same kind of mishmash type of people really looking. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like people might go
Hmm.
to him and Vincent and just go, "Oh, you have this book," or
Hmm.
you wrote about this musician, the
Hmm.
Grateful Dead, or something like that. And like it might be just a direct. Like I said about shopping on Amazon, you know exactly what you want, you know where to get it, and you just go boom,
Right.
straight to it.
Right.
Whereas we're like a mall, but again, I don't
Right.
think that you take our table and break it up and then just go, expect everyone to find us throughout Artist Alley because artists, like you were saying, Mike shows up and he's exhausted already.
Hmm.
You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And it's
Yeah.
because not only are you getting through people and you're walking at 1 mile per hour, if that, and like, and
Right.
you don't, the thing that drives me crazy about crowds is nobody walks straight. Everybody goes like this.
I know.
Everybody goes
They
this,
just waver back
back
and
and
forth.
forth. And it's all like, at 1 mile per hour. And it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, like I just want, and the New Yorker in me just wants to get there, so
Right. No, absolutely. And so I am wondering, like, so I am a big fan of the more communal approach. But I was already talking to Dan Goldman today about certain artists that we know that this isn't a criticism or a slight, but I know some artists that only promote themselves, never share.
yeah.
They're laser focused, monofixated on what they do as a business. And guess what? They do pretty well. They do probably better than me, and
Yeah.
not material wise, but optics wise. Like they're
Right.
literally like, I am this, and this is what you come for, And my problem is, oh, I did this year, and I did this something completely different the next year because I like to keep it interesting for me as a creator,
Yeah.
and I'm hoping as a fan of my work, the fan is also as interested. But I'm wondering, will I even crack my intended funding goal for Antimatter because it is a variety show, in
Mhm.
a way. And
Yeah.
some people just want to know what it is for what, the one thing to keep it easy.
But I think also the the appeal of antimatter, the appeal of any of your future work going forward is, well, Dean made it, it must be good. Like that mentality. You know what I mean? And like, even if it's just like, well, Dean made it, let me give it a shot. That's good enough to get through the door. That's good enough for a $5 digital. Like
Hmm.
or whatever the amount of the digital comic is.
Right, right.
But like there are, I find that like the $25 tier, is geared towards like guys like me. Like they just want to have it, they want to read it,
Hmm.
they want to, know that it exists. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Hmm.
Whereas, with my computer problems recently, I don't want any kind of digital comic because I'm not going to be, who knows if I'm going to keep it.
Right, right.
But I don't, this question popped into my head while you were talking, like while you were, saying your last piece. And I was thinking about how comic conventions, when they're super organized, like New York Comic Con or San Diego or Emerald City or any of the bigger ones, they seem to be less, not user friendly, but like less creator friendly anyway. And
Absolutely. We were talking about, just to hop
yeah,
on, somebody was saying, I don't remember who, maybe Gus Vasquez. It's like $95 a day to walk in the door. You already spent $100
yeah,
before, so you can go to the spectacle to get the free flyers. And why would you suddenly, how do you have $20 for a comic book, or a
right,
book or
right,
whatever? And that's why you might just get something to hang on your wall. And also, you're going to be, again, the bigger meta, commentary is that, we're all on our cell phones all day long anyway. Like when you have time to watch the finale to Peacemaker, or read something new, brand new.
right,
So
right. And the sad thing is, like you were saying, like and I'll go back to what I was saying in a second, but like
yes, sorry,
the sad
yeah.
thing is that it's less about what you bought or who you met and more about what you did. It's like it's the spectacle of the thing. Like I was there,
Hmm.
so maybe you go to the Marvel panel and you see the coming attraction, the trailer for Daredevil season 2, or maybe you go to a panel that has, or you get an autograph specifically, like, oh, I spent $95 to get in the door. I am now going to a photo op meet and greet with X, whoever shows up, like a celebrity, right? And
Hmm.
that's all you've earmarked your money for. You know what I mean? Like that's all you're going to do. What are you walking around for? like
Yeah,
you just no wonder, like and then you're bombarded with all this stuff, like it's stimuli. It's just da da
right.
da da.
Well,
Loud
it's
noises,
funny,
video games, people in Galactus costumes that are like 8 feet
right?
tall. You're like, it's just
You,
too much.
you can't do it. And I've actually had more success, I think, walking around the con, saying hi to people,
Mm.
being able to move, even if I'm wavering back and forth or trying to sneak through a crowd, whatever. And then versus like trying to hawk my wares to like maybe make the table back,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
4 days. And then the smaller cons I do, and again, another obvious is when you have less, there's more,
yeah.
like in a way. And so, I don't know I mean, I've already, I won't sit at a table at San Diego. I might go there and walk around again one day,
Mm.
but I don't know if I need to do New York Comic Con anymore.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't do it. I don't do, I have my reasons for not doing, and I've got into it on Facebook and stuff. Anybody can ask me, but like I have my reasons for not doing it. But the point that I was bringing up was, so let's say that the bigger shows for guys like us are just not the way to go. But like a smaller show like the Eddie P Con, the Three Rivers Con, which is still kind of small, in that sense. Terrific Con, I imagine, is, even though it's at Mohegan Sun, it sounds and feels, and like when I look at the pictures, it looks smaller. Your Baltimore cons, like stuff. What does a Dean, what does a Haspiel con look like? Like, where do you
Mm.
put it? Who do you like? Who do you invite? Like, what would you run a con like? How would you run
I
it?
mean, I listen, I was so enamored by early small press expos, SPX.
Mhm.
I love the idea of everyone's in the same hotel, sleeping in the same hotel that the
Yeah,
show is in. So it's very communal in that way. Lots of alternative comics. that also lean into mainstream like what we do. Obviously, I'd want that. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so maybe I'm thinking early days of SPX. I mean, even the current SPX I went to is a lot of fun and really cool. But I do think, I mean, I'm not going to exclude. I think it should have panels. I think it should have, awards, whatever the hell.
Mhm.
It's just keeping it people there and in the, the energy of that space. But I mean, it's a good question because, like, I joke. I just said awards. I keep joking with Whitney, who one of her quiet jobs is to help certain people, her clients, get nominated for awards and win them
Mhm.
because of optics alone, just
Yeah.
optics. And that's why awards are kind of bullshit, like because it's all about optics, and it just makes people go, oh, that must be good because it got an award. Sure, it's good because it got an award, but there's so many good things. There's so many brilliant like artists, new and old, we're all sitting around each other. And then, then awards happen or someone has a TV show and it just elevates that property or their idea to a level that you no longer in the same realm with
Do you know
anymore.
what's funny is how I don't think, and I could be wrong, but I don't think the majority of people looking or walking around a Comic Con, let's say, but the majority of people that are looking into our industry from the outside, say TV, movies, whatever, like video games, whatever, other IP things outside of comics, I don't think they get storytelling. And what I mean is the greatest thing you can get from a comic convention isn't so much a piece of art. It isn't so much a comic book signed by, by your favorite creator. It isn't so much, buying a comic that, they made themselves that you can't get at a comic book store or anything. It's the time that you spend with that creator and the idea of like, like hanging. I still will go back to the Baltimore Comic Con. I believe it was the year Matt Wagner was kind of like did the Grendel yearbook,
Mm-hmm.
and I forget what year that is, but I just remember sitting at a table with you, John Angle from New Dimension Comics. I think Nick Papora was there as well. I know Ron was there too, but not at the table at the time. So it was
Mm-hmm.
you, me, John, Walt Simonson, and Mark Wade. And all we
Mm-hmm.
did was listen to those two talk.
Mm.
And like every now and again we'd laugh or we interject or something like that. But like I don't think you get that from like a New York Comic Con. And
No,
it's
no,
not
you
so much.
don't. Right, you don't. And and to give you a note of when this happened, uh, I believe this was 10 years ago, because Seth Kushner from his hospital bed
Right.
on his iPad drew a Grendel that I
Yes.
believe got into the book late, because I think we got Brad Tree and Randy Tisher and Tom Zoller allowed it, to happen. Maybe even Mark Nathan, of course. Uh, so I think that's when that was, and I remember thinking how great that was,
Mm.
Anyway, but no, I do. I mean, listen, I'm sure New York Comic Con has its amazing million quiet, moments where things are happening that you wouldn't expect at a con. But that's also why you go to the con,
Yeah.
because these things could happen, and it's great. I am grateful for the 4 days I spent hanging out with the people I saw or you don't see. God, there are people that like I didn't even recognize that were like, remember me from Wizard World 10 years ago? I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen you. I mean, like because out of sight, out of mind a lot of the time, because
Yeah.
we do meet a lot of people, and so it is worth it on some level just for that. And in fact, it was cheaper for me to share a table than to try to get 4 days worth of even as a pro, I'll bet,
Mm.
and that's another thing. They're just making it hard. And the amount of people that don't get in is making it harder and harder. But guess what, too? There is a Comic Con every weekend, Vito.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I don't really care for the exclusivity of it. Like I don't care for having to prove my bona fides, to a computer, to somebody in an office that may or may not even read comic books. So that if I give them again, I have a litany of issues with Reed Pop that I could go into, but I'm not going to. I love you, Mike Negan, like
And
notwithstanding.
Alex Ray. I
I
love
don't know
Alex Ray.
Alex, but yeah, like Mike
Alex is
Negan
great.
is Mike Negan I've known for years and years when he was
Mike's
a customer
great. Mike Negan.
at
Yep.
Jim Families, but like I could like I still have issues with the Reed Pop and I'm not going to budge on them until, I doubt that they'll ever change,
You're
so
right. Right.
anyway,
Well, it's a
moving
whole
on.
other industry now in a way.
Yeah.
Um, and I will say this, just to kind of put a cap on it, because I know in some ways it's also obvious that I said that the reader is my publisher, but and it doesn't mean that if the readers went down to just one reader, would I still be doing it? Because you got to express yourself. I do wonder if I'm going to stay in comics or in using that format to express myself. I'm not so sure. But like for instance, if I put a big sign that said Emmy Award winning, to put Vito Delsante, Dean Haspiel, your mom,
Mhm.
guarantee people will walk over my table to at least find out or look at what I'm doing.
Right.
And I don't do that. And I'm an idiot because maybe I need to do that. Maybe it's so obvious and I'm so like that's corny. I don't want, and also I don't want somebody to stop because they said, "Oh, would you win an Emmy award for?" Because again, my feelings for what awards really do,
Right.
Uh, so I want the merit of the work to sell itself, but of course, that's just sometimes a dream,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
so. I don't know.
You know about my banner idea of having using Deadpool, and he says Vito Delsante in like big huge letters, and then like there's like a little asterisk which has never written Deadpool, like like
That's
just because
great.
Deadpool sells books, might as well
I
get you to
love
get
that.
over.
I
Um,
love that. And listen, I'm not going to do a whole rundown of everybody I saw
no,
at the
no, not
show.
at
I
all.
saw lots of great folks, and I had some really good conversations. But there was also this kind of like lingering thing about me fighting the fact that I had to retail my work,
Yeah,
on the heels of, and if I'm not pimping antimatter all day long, which I was, at the show, but I wasn't getting the backing that I would want to over a weekend. But so that's another job.
yeah.
And actually, I don't know if you want to mention. I know you have something you want to talk about, but before we do that, can I talk about my Instagram ban, or should we wait to talk about my Instagram ban?
I'm not aware of this, so talk about it.
Yeah, you're not worried because this happened today.
Okay.
So, and it's
Meanwhile,
not that big a deal.
I'm sending you all my stupidity
No, I'm
alone.
getting our Cold War continues
Yes.
behind the scenes, sending each other messed up, and I haven't seen the last 4 or 6 or whatever you sent me, but
Sorry.
they're amazing. They're always amazing. But so I woke up to a note from Instagram, saying basically, I have violated. God, she should just read it. I violated 3 times. Hold on, let me find the. I took a picture because I've been working with some people on this. These posts may not follow our guidelines. Your post didn't follow our guidelines on sexual activity and about nudity. And what it is my AI Joe comic,
Still.
which is being published in Tales from Aerotech,
Mhm.
okay, published by SHP Comics. What's been happening in the last month or so in their promotions, they tagged me and asked me to be a collaborator to basically showing the cover and saying to pre-order the comic book, right?
Right.
So I always accept it in the review, say yes, and somehow now we're both, posting at the same time, even though it's just an automatic thing that happened once I said yes. Okay. It goes up on my Instagram account and boom, it's being shared and being promoted. Okay. I guess this happened 3 times in the last month or something. And they're like, we're reviewing it right now, but because I did it, I now can't go live for 362 days. The next time I can go live on Instagram is October 10th, 2026. So
Jeez.
I'm disputing it, but there is no phone number or human being to call or write to
Right.
say what the hell. And I'll get to Kickstarter next, which is so there's these 3, and if you look at the covers, this is nothing. It's like side boob or something or a
Right.
silhouette, and they've actually censored some of the aspects of the drawings, uh, you know, and the thing that's even crazier is I'm the one getting hurt and SHP Comics, those images are still up. Okay. So it's like, what the hell? Am I supposed to like delete them? Or they, I don't care if they delete them. But what I didn't understand was that I can't go live. Now, the reason why that matters right now and sucks for me is because one of the ways that I've been promoting my Kickstarters is when
Right.
I go live.
Yeah.
And like me and Whitney talk for like a half hour and we generate interest, or you and I could talk, whatever, whoever, and have these little kind of like live interviews. And so now that's been taken away. And so that's pissing me off. And I'm trying to dispute it right now through the automated system, and I'll see what happens.
Right.
Okay. Meanwhile, Kickstarter is still on strike. The employees are on strike.
Right.
Okay. And I spoke to Sam Cusick, who's the Kickstarter comics guy. Okay. And I respected his wishes. He asked me to write the CEO on their behalf. Okay. And I was like, absolutely.
Well, now,
So
Sam,
I spoke to,
just to be clear, Sam is the head of the union. Is that?
well, no, I think there's like 60 people that are on
Okay.
strike, or maybe more. I don't know, but not necessarily the union. Oh, I don't think so. But he's definitely a part of the strike
Mhm.
with the employees. And then I wrote the CEO, and he wrote me like 20 minutes later saying how it was the best letter he gotten,
Yeah.
that was respectful and all this stuff. And so like I did my best, right? I helped out Sam, and I gave a little like, hey, what's up to the CEO kind of thing.
I
And
think
they both were very encouraging
you even
about
put an image at the bottom of your Kickstarter, I believe.
the
Yeah.
bottom of my Kickstarters is how I support the strike, and everything's cool and it's all clear, and I'm not a scab. And they both have encouraged me to run a Kickstarter. But then
Mhm.
I'm realizing this, and I should bring this up, is so I'm getting no support from the employees. There's no Kickstarter support. There's no like, this is
Projects we
a
love or
a
anything like
project
that.
we love. There's no tweets. There's nothing.
Mhm.
Okay. And so does that mean that if I were to make my goal and have a successful Kickstarter, do I still give the same amount of the cut that
Oh,
you make?
that's a good question. I imagine so.
Of course they're going to get the same thing
Yeah.
for doing when I'm not saying they did nothing because they created the platform.
But they're not currently
But
doing what they would normally do.
right. And I have a bigger question, which is, are people not supporting Kickstarters right now because of the strike?
I'll
Thinking,
tell you
oh,
what, I was totally unaware that there was a strike going on until you told me last week. You know what I mean? And like
right,
I'm backing your book, I'm backing Ray's book. Like
right,
so I didn't really know that until like there was any kind of ongoing issue going.
right,
So
right. So maybe
I,
it's not loud enough or big enough,
right.
and it really does feel like it's more of a dispute, obviously, between them.
Mhm.
And I think part of the issue was that they were told that they can have a 4-day work week, and the with the not the ceiling, but the floor amount of being paid is like 85,000 a year or something like that. And so now they're being asked to probably work 5 days a week for the same monies and other things. And like, it's unfair. And like, okay, I get it. In some ways, I wish I was working at Kickstarter. I'd be
Yeah.
making 3 times or more what I'm making now as a cartoonist working 7 days a week. But whatever, the apples and oranges, they're different jobs. So, I respect it, and that's what they want. And like I said, I did what I could, but I'm also doing all the work right now.
Yeah.
Uh, so Kickstarter can make the same amount of money they would make, you know, uh,
Keep in
and then
mind,
Instagram. I'm just tired right now of our
I
social media tools,
mean,
including we're using one right now.
you also just got done with 4 days of a show yesterday. So, like, even though, like, you're
Yeah,
going to be looking at this, by the time people see this, you will be
yeah,
coming back from Baltimore. So, like,
right,
think about it
right.
that way. Like that's like you got a couple of days off to like do a couple, maybe a little bit of work and stuff, and then all of a sudden you're back on the road.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
At
I
least that one's
appreciate
not
that. That's
work.
true. It what?
But at least Baltimore's not work. That's like
No, 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 no,
it's.
no.
I
I
mean,
mean,
the
again,
schlepping and like setting up the table and everything like that's one thing,
yeah,
but like
yeah,
being there is not work.
yeah. So two things. Before we get to your topic, and then we'll go to our comics creator versus. Have you been watching Task on HBO? I don't think
No,
you have.
no.
Watch it.
I think one of you were talking about it last week. I think.
Yeah,
Someone was talking about it last week. I can't remember where.
it's great. It's great. I just saw the sixth to last. Well, it's 7 episodes, and episode 6 came out last night. It is heartbreaking.
Huh.
Peacemaker finale.
I got
Uh,
thoughts.
all right, tell me your thoughts.
Have you watched it?
I have. Oh,
Okay.
okay. Spoiler for people who haven't seen Peacemaker.
Yeah.
Season 2 finale.
So the season 2 finale, and like they where we ended last episode was Peacemaker. I almost called him John, but it's Chris. It's just John Cena. Uh, Getting arrested, you know, put into custody. So this
Oh,
whole
by the way, I realized that his, Peacemaker's name, Chris Smith,
Mhm.
is basically a holiday with a lisp.
I want to go to the next topic now. Um, so
Chris
they
Smith.
his
Such
friends get him out of jail. They bail him out, and they start up Checkmate. That's the gist of the situation. And I heard that
But
the
wait. You're being too insider baseball because
but
even
yeah,
for
yeah,
me,
wait.
what is checkmate?
I'm gonna get there.
Okay.
So let me get there first. Let me do that first. So Checkmate is a DC organization, kind of like a spy organization, just like Argus, just like Shield, and Checkmate had a tiered system of like kings and queens and rooks. I think Paul Kupperberg created Checkmate. Um, so anyway, like it's niche. Greg Rucka wrote a very good Checkmate series post Final Crisis, I believe. That was really good. I think Jesus Saez did the artwork, so it's worth checking out. So I don't know that this iteration of Checkmate is going to operate like the other two, like the way
Mhm.
Kupperberg and the way Rucka did it. But it's just a way that these characters can all stay together. So uh, initially, that's where the story ended. That's where the season ended, as they're walking out, like high fiving each other, and you know, you know, everything's back to normal almost. Like the status quo.
Oh, and also importantly, oh, what's the blonde woman's name? The
Harcourt,
character name?
Amelia
Harcourt
Harcourt. Yeah,
basically gives John Cena like, yeah, it meant something
the,
that
the
night.
kiss that they
And
share
that
in
night, by the
season
way,
two.
was a kiss. It wasn't even like it was a kiss at a concert show.
I'm
By the
sorry,
way, Nelson, is that a real band?
yes, it is. Those are
Wow.
Ricky Nelson's kids.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay. And so and the episode's called Full Nelson. And
yeah,
so he finally gets what he wants, is that, acknowledgement that maybe there's something there, right?
right.
And they form Checkmate and they're gonna go against, they're gonna do their own version of Argus, like you said, or whatever. And then
And then he gets black bagged, kidnapped, and thrown into a separate world. Now, the thing that I've been ignoring up until this point is the other B plot of the episode, which was exploring other worlds through the quantum unfolding chamber that Chris's dad created or discovered that led to
these
other
these
worlds.
doors to different dimensions. Yeah.
Right. Um, Everyone seems to be up in arms about they're like, oh, it wasn't a great season finale. It didn't, like it wasn't as good as last time or whatever. Like people have been criticizing the episode, and then therefore the season as a result of this last episode. And I realized a couple of days ago why potentially people are criticizing it. And it's because they left money on the table. What do I mean, Dean? They go through one door and it's a black hole. They go through another door and there's these little candy imps that like are vicious. They go through another door and it's zombies. They go through another door and it's a Hieronymus Bosch painting come to life. None of these doors lead to a DC universe, except for the door that they went the entire season going through, which was Earth X. Why not? Why can't we see a JSA. And James Gunn even went online and said he initially tried to get permission from Marvel to get Deadpool through one of those doors.
Nice.
Why? Why wouldn't you just like, have
Right.
Ryan Reynolds as Green Lantern through one of
Right.
those?
Right.
Just something, like the thing about it is if you're what we call it in wrestling fandom, if you're a mark, if you're a smart mark, specifically, if you know the product and you know like the potential of the product, why would you spend all your money making up these fake worlds when you have all these worlds you could just show?
Mm-hmm.
You could show Rainbow Batman, even if you're not showing
Mm-hmm.
Batman. You could
Mm-hmm.
show a cartoon version of the Teen Titans or something. And
Mm-hmm.
you could do this in a way that's satisfying. They screwed it up in the Flash movie when they had the Earths. Did you see the Flash movie?
Yeah, I did. I enjoyed it.
Okay, so like you remember when they had all the Earths crashing and they had like
Yep.
George Reeves Earth and like the Christopher Reeve Earth.
Right.
You could have
Nicolas
done,
Cage, Superman.
and you could have done something maybe a little more sophisticated, a little better,
Right.
a little better with the special effects. Maybe they also did something similar in the Arrowverse TV series, with Arrow and Flash and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Legends of Tomorrow, where they did a Crisis on Infinite Earth storyline where they showed other Earths, like even though they were just clips from other shows, like they
Mm-hmm.
it's like now you have the potential to do something that could lead to something later. You're so well thought out. Why couldn't you have done something?
So I think your aggravation, and I have not read or seen any criticism of the show because I was at Comic
Busy.
Con and I avoided everything, and then I watched it last night, with knowing nothing, okay, and I didn't even think about what you just said at all. Number one, number two, because you made me think about it. There's 100 more doors that they have to like open and
Right.
unlock and whatever, figure out, and so that idea still exists. What you just said,
Right.
number one. Number two, now imagine doing that. How much money are you spending on that episode to get that actor to show up and say one line and dress up and then get Rainbow Batman? Who's going to play Rainbow Batman?
Who cares?
At the same time, who cares? But I do think that maybe it might be a budgetary consideration. So what they did is they alluded to everything you just said. I don't even
Uh,
know if it was on the table, but it's a great
bro,
table setting.
they were going to try to get Deadpool from another company.
Yeah, that's
Like,
great.
if you're going to spend all that money to try to get Deadpool from Disney, then
Right.
just keep the money in house and just do
Keep it in
something.
house. You're right.
That's
And then
that's my take.
so Flag is now gearing up to be a real bad guy because he's pissed off that, I mean, I don't know what he was like before his son got killed by Peacemaker, but he's a piece of work now. And then there's definitely some Lex Luthor, adjacent stuff happening
Sure.
here because of these dimensions. I don't know how you play it out because I feel like a lot of the doors were locked and they couldn't open the doors, so they were setting that up. But it could just go bananas, right?
Well,
Like,
here's you got to remember something, or not remember. You have to keep this in mind. James Gunn has not announced a season 3, so this is going to play elsewhere. Where we end the show is Chris Smith, Peacemaker, is has been thrown into a world that they're calling Salvation, which is based on the Bill Willingham, Lila Sturgis miniseries called Salvation Run, which was I think during right before Final Crisis that Grant Morrison wrote, and it's basically Lord of the Flies with supervillains, if I remember how it went down. Sean Chen, I believe, drew it. But I was saying to Matt Major, like the thing that I would, what I would have done is instead of like, being like evil and mean and, like vengeful, as Rick Flag, I would have said, you're the warden on this planet.
mm-hmm,
You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
Like, here's your gear, you have to, like you have to keep these people in line. You know,
Yeah,
it's
that's
still a
interesting.
sentence of
Right,
being off world and away from your friends and everything, but
right.
it's how you make amends. You have to do that. But if Rick Flag's being a douche, then that doesn't work so well.
Sure,
Um,
sure. And just to also a piece of the puzzle here, the bigger concept was that there was this unfolding chamber device that went to different dimensions, and uh, you know, Argus and Flag were trying to figure out what where all the different doors they could open, and then they found the one that could be this uh, a planet that imprisons metahumans, right? And so I forget the name of the woman with the dark hair, what her character name is. I think it's the
Sasha
Warren Ellis character,
Sasha Bordeaux.
Sasha Bordeaux. And what's her superhero name or villain,
Uh,
supervillain name?
she didn't have a name. She was a
But is
Batman.
she based on a Warren Ellis character, or maybe I'm
No,
wrong?
no, she was I think created by either Greg Rucka or Denny during
Oh,
like
wow.
post Cataclysm. Like it was like the new era of Batman post No Man's Land, not
I
Cataclysm.
mean, I don't even know how you're able to keep track. I can't keep track of all these
I
eras
got to
and
keep
these
track of my own
things.
stuff too.
Exactly. It's insane. So, but they found this place that could sustain life, and you basically would have to like, I don't know, fight monsters and fend off, for food yourself and create shelter. It's kind of like oh, what was that Survivor. It's like
Mhm.
Survivor. And so, they've thrown Peacemaker. Now, I do wonder, it's like he doesn't wear his costume anymore. Like it's just John Cena now,
Yeah.
like or Chris Smith, like, and it's cool because I don't need that costume. It's funny looking, of course, and fun when he wears it, but he's such a cool looking, like what an iconic looking guy now, like he's become his own hero in a lot of
Well,
ways.
because he wears that costume whenever he's promoting the show. That's commitment.
No,
One thing I want to ask you is, did you happen to notice the sounds in the background of
yeah,
Cell?
yeah, I thought it was like Jurassic Park or Monsters or something.
Hey, now here's where I'm going to blow your mind. In the comics, Salvation Run, it's, like I said, it's the name of the comic series. Salvation is actually a planet that I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, and it's a planet that Darkseid uses to train parademons. So and like he also
Um,
throws soldiers on it to try to evolution
mm,
survival of the fittest. So there's a
mm,
theory that that sound you heard at the end are parademons. So
mm,
is James Gunn leading up to it's again the name of this multi-year arc that he's building is called Gods and Monsters. Is he
hmm.
building up to do a dark side story post Man of Tomorrow, or like as we get there? Hard to say. I mean,
Interesting. And
I trust James Gunn. James Gunn, I almost called him James.
James John.
I trust him, like, but I feel like that was a misstep to like show these alternate worlds without showing DC related worlds.
Even so, it got you talking, it got you thinking, it got me thinking, and I think it's fine because it still can exist. And I almost wonder if it would have been overwhelming. I remember loving the She-Hulk finale. Uh, did you see She-Hulk?
Yeah, of course,
Yeah, and it was
love
a lot going on, and it almost became too much. So I wonder if those little cameo moments would have been like it would have just blown your mind, so that when the ending happened, you would have been like, I want to go back to Rainbow Batman and Zebra
it.
Batman. Like sorry, Chris Smith, but I'm just thinking about other stuff right now. So in a way, it would almost prove distracting. But what it did do is got you thinking, and I think
Okay,
that's the power of James Gunn.
I want to bring up a text that Matt Major sent me. Um, Post both of us watching it. He goes, "I really hope Gunn is building towards the authority, since we were talking about Warren Ellis a second ago, and doesn't take it in another direction. He obviously had the authority in mind when he set out. The engineer, Planet Watch instead of planetary, doors, which like that's how they go through the bleed through doors. Hawk Girl as a Swift stand-in, like I forget her first name. Lex as a Henry Bendick stand-in, especially if he breaks good in the sequel. The fact that Lex can make an Apollo in similar fashion to how he made Bizarro, it's all there. I just hope he actually does it. That's from Matt Major.
Interesting.
Yeah, like there's a lot going on there. I think a lot of moving parts.
There's a lot of moving parts, and like just like you asked me earlier in this conversation about what my Comic Con would look like, right? Like, and we don't need to get into this now. Maybe this is homework. What is your DC universe or Marvel universe? Like, what would that look like had you been handed the reins to start with certain characters?
We did this many years ago on Live Journal. Do you remember
Mm.
this? we were
No.
there was this exercise that like I know that I did. I think Mayday Trip did it. I think Chris Arndt might have even done it, and it was
Mm.
on LiveJournal. This was a long, long time ago. The only person I know that still uses LiveJournal is you. Um, but like it was a list of like if you were the editor at Marvel, who would be so like I did creative teams. I put you with a couple of different people. DC. I think I did both DC and Marvel. Um, it's weird how much that would change now based on because I know that like a lot of it was based on who is a good writer that could benefit from like a Jimmy Chung or uh, uh, a Jim Lee or something. You know what I mean? Like a
Hmm.
top tier artist. I think I had you writing something. Like I'm not
Maybe.
sure.
But
Let's
my
see if I can
question,
find it.
my bigger, like broader question is, and then we'll see it unfold with James Gunn. We saw it with Zack Snyder, his universe, and in fact, I was intrigued by where he was going to go next when you
Mhm.
mentioned Dark Side, and like what was implied in the JLA movie toward the end, with his ending is kind of nuts, like, and I want to see it. It's dark and bleak, and I don't know. I mean, am I asking you to do unpaid work? No, but if you have a hankering to think, well, how would you start your DC universe, cinematic universe, or comic book universe, for a year? What if you took over DC Comics for 1 year?
Dude, let me tell
Well,
you
how would you
something.
show run it?
Dude, I have 50 issues of Nightwing waiting in the can. You think I
I
won't
know.
do this just as an exercise? You're out of your mind. I have, but I have a better proposal for you. I'm more of a DC guy. You're more of a Marvel guy.
Yeah.
I think I should just like, all right, Vito, you've been handed the reins. You're in James Gunn's position, and Dean,
Hmm.
you are in Kevin Feige's position. Now
Right.
let's see where we go. You know what I mean?
Right. 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 Right.
How far? How much power? Not power, but how much influence do you want on different IP products? How much?
Well, I have in a way, I have written if you gave me a year, I have written the plot outline almost to the end of, I'm going to say, a 6 or 8 issue miniseries of a Marvel series that would kind of like rejigger the Marvel universe.
Oh, interesting.
And I already put up the first issue in my Substack newsletter. And it features the Fantastic Four because that's where you begin, at least as far as I'm concerned. Although well, the cinematic universe did it backwards, like,
Yeah.
um, but and I do have this idea that I came up with that's a lot of fun that maybe I'll share and elaborate on. And then when you're ready to talk about your DC universe, as it were, then maybe that'll be an entire show
Yeah,
that
let's do that.
that could be fun.
Maybe not next week, but maybe, like after Baltimore or something.
Oh yeah, take your time after Baltimore, and we'll get there. All right, so I know you want to talk about somebody,
I
and then
wanted to mention Christopher Mills, who I mentioned last week as like weird verses. Like Gary Shalhoner had mentioned, like if you were doing a versus for Dean, it would be Paul Grist versus Dean, and then Vito would be Vito versus Christopher Mills. And I had kind of encouraged everybody to check out his work. And I think I did it without sharing a link, which I'll, make a note to share the link to his work. Christopher Mills is no longer with us as of this morning. He is no, like passed away, and um, I can't say that I'm broken up about it because I think there are people that are closer to him. But I was, I helped Chris, when he was at Action Lab a little bit. I hope I helped him. Um, I always spoke highly of him. Like I always um, gave him the benefit of my time and effort. Like wonderful guy, like absolutely brilliant writer. Could get noir like nobody's business. Worked with our buddy Joe Staten on a couple of projects. Uh, I can't. It's not like for me, and I knew him like we met at San Diego one year, and there wasn't the Warren Ellis. message board. It was a adjacent one, not through Warren Ellis's board, but like on the same server. I think I can't remember what was the name of the server that he had, but there was a writers board, and this is where I met David Gallagher, where I met Bobby Nash, and where I met Chris. And like, I think we all had a meetup once at San Diego, where during our meetup in this lobby, we were all like talking and stuff. And I saw Sybil Danning. Do you know who Sybil Danning is?
Yeah.
She was like a B movie actress. I saw her walking
Hmm.
by. God, she looked good still at that age. Like she must have been in like her 60s or something. I was just like, damn, she looks good. But yeah, and that's where I met him and stuff. And like, we all, I've been closer with like say Bobby and David Gallagher over the years, but Chris and I never lost touch of each other, and we were always very fond of each other. And gonna miss you, bud. It's to him.
Respect. Rest in peace. Christopher Mills.
All
Um,
right.
I don't know if I've ever met him. It's possible. I definitely heard of him,
Yeah. Yeah.
so, and I may have even read his work.
He has a
Um,
really great book called Gravedigger, where, like I said, it'll be in the links for this show. But Gravedigger was such a blatant. It was Rick Burkett who did the artwork, so
I love Rick.
and
Oh,
very like very similar to your art style. Like very fluid
yeah.
animation and stuff. And it was Lee Marvin basically as the lead.
Oh my God. I think I've
So
seen
good,
that then. Yes, I definitely have
so
seen
good.
that.
So
Was that an Eternity comic? Do you know who published that?
I know Action Lab published one of them, but I can't remember who did it. It might have been
Huh.
Ape Entertainment
Okay.
on the
Okay.
first one, but I can't remember who did it first.
All right. Well,
No,
speaking
it's
of
not a
writers,
downer, man. Let me put this out there.
yeah.
One of the bravest things about Chris during this, health ordeal, um, which I don't feel comfortable getting into it, but if you go to his Facebook page, he goes into detail with it, So again, I don't feel comfortable doing that, but at some point he realizes, like I don't have much time, and he's like, I don't want to burden anybody. I don't want, anybody's, like a kind of like I want to actually relieve people of their burden. And he just decided that like he was going to go off, like dialysis, I think, go off like certain medications. Like he was just going to do hospice care just so for the end, like for palliative care. And it's just like, how brave is that? You know what I mean? It's not like suicide, and I don't have any bad thing to say about people that commit suicide anymore. Like I used to have like this very Christian, like, oh, you're, taking life, from God or anything. But I find, people that have contemplated suicide to be very strong people. I feel like you have to be pretty strong to, consider taking your life. Um, I hate the circumstances that some people find themselves in where they feel like there's no hope or nobody cares or anything. Um, but that's a totally different show, I'm sure. But with Chris, like he decided, like since this is my life and this is in my hands, I'm going to do it on my terms, and like he just announced it on Friday that he was going to, like stop, the medication or whatever. And here it is Monday, and like he's gone. Like I like I'm very not envious because I'm not in that position, but like I admire him so much. You know what I mean? Like that's such a hard but strong position. You know what I mean? Like I can't imagine doing that.
Absolutely. I mean, and I don't know if you had kids, like you have kids and
Yeah,
you're married and you're raising a family and you need to think about that. It's a very personal decision to to decide on how you're going out if you can even decide that. Most people
yeah,
don't get to decide that,
yeah.
right?
That's
Or a
true.
lot of people don't. And I'll just be real quick. I think actually now that I think about it, because of what you just said, and I'll keep it short. But I think half the reason why I wasn't as aggressive as I'd like to be, or a showman about my work at a Comic Con, is because my dad was had to go to the hospital because he couldn't move, he couldn't stand or anything, and I'm like walking into Javits Center, getting phone calls that my dad's in the hospital, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to get into a car and go to Southampton Hospital where he's at, you know? And I'm able to get on the phone, and we're talking, and at some point, because you mentioned suicide, uh, some social worker 2 days in, because you're dealing with a lot of pain and all this stuff with his back, and like his stomach was really sick for some reason. He might have had a virus that they're not sure. Um, they asked him how he's feeling, and he said he was really depressed because like most of his friends are dead, and
Yeah.
sometimes he feels. They asked, "Do you feel suicidal?" He's like, "Well, sometimes, yeah, but whatever." And because he said that, 20 minutes later, a security guard comes in and says, uh, "Where are all your belongings?"
Hmm.
I wanted to see what property he had on him, which was nothing. And then they said, "Oh, we're going to put you in a room where someone's going to watch you for 24/7." And he was like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, "Well, you mentioned suicide." And we're like, "I'm 87. Everything sucks right now. I'm depressed. Of course, I'm going to mention suicide. I'm not suicidal." They're like, "No, but because you technically said it." And basically, they didn't want to say this to cover our asses.
Right.
We got to watch you. And then they went on to remove all the shades, so that he couldn't hang
Springs.
himself.
Yeah.
They moved all the furniture in the room, and they made a woman sit with him until they could get a psych ward person come 2 days later to clear him. And he felt like a prisoner, and he wasn't even there anymore for the health aspect, the medical reason.
Right.
He was there because he was on suicide watch.
Right.
I'm sure my dad would be okay with letting you know that. So I'm dealing with phone calls and social workers calling me all the time while
Yeah.
I'm trying to hawk my comics. So I'm now losing. And then Friday, today's
Monday.
Monday, Friday, Jen falls off a ladder in her studio, hits her head, and breaks her drawing hand. And she has a
Oh,
show coming out December 6th. And she's like, "It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. I'm gonna be okay." So I'm thinking, I don't even. There's my dad. Now there's Jen, and like, so that night I get home after doing the con and like trying to go to some parties and network and blah 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 and all this stuff. I get home, she's okay. She got her hand wrapped up. I help her wrap it up in the morning, and then she goes to get her car to go to upstate New York because something she had to do, and her car is gone. Where's her car? It got stolen.
you
Oh wait,
can't.
no, it did because she went to the police station and luckily she had an air tag in the car, so she was able
Hmm.
to identify where it was parked, like an hour away, somewhere in Brooklyn that I've never heard of. And so she goes to the police station. And they're like, "Oh yeah, no, you got towed for some bullshit reason." And it's like breaks her hand, loses her car. $250 later is getting her car. Okay, my dad's in the hospital, and I'm trying to sell chest face, or hawk antimatter. And so like it took the wind out of my
Can
sails.
I tell you something?
Yeah.
Remember, I bought a new car.
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday afternoon, I'm going to pick up Sadie. Me and Michelle go to pick up Sadie from the bus stop. Michelle has a hair appointment. Drive Michelle up to the salon, and then we're parked. And the bus driver, weirdly enough, James's bus driver has his door open. He goes, "Your tire's falling off." And I'm thinking, oh, just must have just got loose or something. So I call, roadside to come and, just, loosen, like tighten it up or whatever. He's like, "No, the control arm is broken, rusted off of the back end." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I
Oh
just
my
got
God.
this car." And
Oh
like,
my.
so we're picking it up either tomorrow or the next day. Thankfully, the folks at Unity Auto Sales in Pittsburgh have agreed to pay for the entire thing because, it's a reputation thing, I'm sure. But
Wow.
like it just, and trying to get a tow there was a nightmare.
Oh
People
my
like take
God.
advantage, like roadside assistance was like 10 miles are free, and then it's like $7 a mile after that. Costs
Sure.
$288 to get it towed
Oh
over
my
there.
God.
So yeah,
Oh my.
I feel you. I mean, I don't have your dad situation and
No,
stuff.
no, but it's all life is such a hassle, especially as you get older. What the hell, man? I just want to crawl into a hole
I
sometimes.
don't mean to be glib because I do miss my friend, but Chris Mills, you totally got it right, man. Check
Totally.
out while you can, on your own terms.
Yeah,
Freaking
absolutely.
freaking soldier.
Big Big
God
ups to
bless.
Chris Mills.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to enter the
Let's have
last
fun.
part of this. Let's have
Let's
some
have,
fun.
let's have fun now.
So I have a bunch of good ones. What we're going to play now is a continuation of our comics creator versus.
Yep.
Again, this doesn't mean that anybody is bad. In fact, we've picked these names because we love them and they're great, and we're trying to match them up and have fun. Just like if you had to pick one over the other, not even necessarily their persona as a human being, but from their work, or sometimes both, depending.
No, today we're changing it. Today, whoever loses sucks.
Sucks.
Yeah.
They just suck.
Yeah. They just like should have never.
It has been revealed that they were the emperor. They were wearing the emperor's clothes. It was
Yeah.
all
You
a
should
bunch
have
of
never
bullshit.
picked up a pencil, my friend.
That's right. All right, so we're
I'm kidding.
entering.
Of course,
We're
I'm kidding.
continuing. Of course, we're entering the realm of writers
Yeah.
that we started last time, and you said something earlier in this podcast about spending time with the writer.
Mhm.
I think that's a really good way of like talking about how when you like someone and you want to not only support them but immerse in their world.
Yeah. Because I don't think panels is the same thing. Like sitting down at a panel and like listening to Grant Morrison talk is not the same as like walking into Grant Morrison at a comic store and just shooting the shit.
But also their work, like their writing. Like,
Yeah.
yes, comic book art is also key, and you can immerse in that world as well. But there is something, like talk to Chris Claremont. You can see it in his writing, what
Yeah.
his whole
Yeah.
like how he thinks. So, this is my first one for us to debate. Brian Michael Bendis
Oh,
versus
good.
Brian K. Vaughan.
Oof.
That's how I decided it.
You
And all
know,
right, so Brian Michael Bendis is well, actually started off as a cartoonist,
yeah,
writing and drawing.
yeah.
And then I forget, it was like a crime book, I believe, right? Like a
Well, he
black and white
did
crime
he
book.
did Torso, he did
Mm.
Fortune and Glory, and he did one other crime book. I'm blanking on the name. Um, but I think he did that one with Michael Gaidos as well. And those things led to Marvel discovering his work and asking him to write Ultimate Spider-Man, which is crazy when you think about it. Absolutely insane that a guy who did a couple of Image comics that were very, very crime centric, with the exception of Fortune and Glory, which is very comedic and very self-deprecating and stuff. But talking about Elliot Ness, just like post The Untouchables, post Capone in Ohio, kind of investigating one of the earlier serial killers in America. And they go, yeah, you're the guy to write Spider-Man. Like as a teenager,
Yeah.
like what, like, and here, the other context, like you might need to know out there, watching this is that prior to Ultimate Spider-Man, John Byrne was asked to do kind of a retelling of Spider-Man from the beginning, and it was called Spider-Man Chapter One. And it wasn't, you know, to guys like me and Dean, probably it was well received because it was John Byrne, like we were used to John Byrne, but it didn't seem to set anything on fire. Like it didn't seem to like reinvent the wheel. But
Right.
Bendis and Mark Bagley, who's the artist, Bendis and Bagley on Ultimate Spider-Man totally changed everything. And I think it's because it was so contemporary and so modern and so of the time, of the now, which was 25, almost 30 years ago at this point. It was it was such a risk on Marvel's part when you think about it. This was during their bankruptcy days. This was when Bill Jemas and Joe Quesada had just taken over. So it was such a huge risk, and it paid off like huge. When you
Is
think,
that where they in debuted Miles Morales,
uh,
or is that
many, many years later.
many years later? And also, didn't they trump the Lee Kirby run consecutive
Yes,
100? Lee and Kirby did 102 issues consecutive, and I think they did more, like 108 or something, or
something
I
like
don't
that.
know.
Yeah.
So they beat that
Or
record.
yeah, before Sarah Pacelli came on and they relaunched it, I believe.
Okay. And I listen, I've met Bendis. I've been on panels with Bendis. I
Yeah,
love Bendis, but I did never read his Spider-Man comic.
they,
And
you know, this might be a very good way to sell it to you. I was working at the comic store at the time that it started, so I was so anti the idea of it. I'm like, I don't need an alternate, version, or anything like that. And then, you just start hearing people talking about it, and they're like talking about it like like it's like I'm trying to think of who it was. Um, I think it was like some comedian says Tom Segura is who it is. He's like, it's like when you first discovered cheese, that you could put cheese on anything, and you're like, oh my god, I can have this all the time. That's what it was like. It was like, oh my god, this is really like I read it from beginning to end. It's just like, wow, this is just
right.
it's good. Like
That's great. That's great. I was turned on to Bendis by his Daredevil run, which I
hmm,
loved his
yeah,
Daredevil. I loved his Moon Knight. I know that he had an opportunity of working with Simonson on Avengers for a second.
hmm.
He's done a ton of stuff. I think he then went over to DC,
Let's not forget
uh,
Powers, his
Powers, which he's done
Michael
with
Avon
Michael Avon
Oeming.
Oeming. Again, I've only read so much of his stuff, but he was also kind of considered the David Mamet of comics in terms of his writing style. Very particular writing style, not verbose. Sorry, Chris Claremont, in the Chris Claremont way, respectfully, but in a more syncopated way. I want to say.
He is credited with introducing, not inventing, but introducing deconstruction in comics,
Hmm.
right? Where everything gets broken down into the minutia of it, which leads to Bendis is also, as an artist, I'm sure this plays to his strengths, but his word balloon placements are ridiculous in the best ways. Like
Mm.
there is no reason. Like I remember I was editing someone's book, I think with Charlie. I think I was editing a story in one of the Spider Squirrel stories, like one of the short stories. And,
Hmm.
the person was like, oh, let's put the letters like this. And I actually came flat out and said, you are not Brian Michael Bendis. You will not, cannot get away with this.
Right, right.
Make it a big balloon, whatever you have to do, but you cannot just go over the art like that. And
Sure,
the
sure.
thing is, like when you look at those word balloons that he has in his work, they're terse, but they mean something. Like no, there's no wasted words, so you cannot just edit them out. And then also you have Mike Oming who works probably the best with him and can work around that and shape
Hmm.
art to that. Um, I find him fascinating. He's such a great guy, such a nice person, such
Oh,
a
he
I hate to
also
call him
like
a mensch, but like he's a mensch.
he also brought Fife into Marvel,
That's right.
Michelle Fife, to write a 12-issue series. The name escapes me right now, and he got other work because of that.
He was
And
an
and so
ultimate
he's
booker.
also looking out for the alternative cartoonists in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
And then
So
Brian Vaughn,
Brian K. Vaughan,
who, why the last man? Uh, uh, my favorite, Deus Ex Machina, I should say. Um,
yeah.
that book, Ex Machina, I didn't really, I tried Why the Last Man, and I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. Like there was so many moving parts in it that it was hard to really like. I want to say focus on characters. Whereas Ex Machina, because you have this amazing conceit, it's a superhero in the real world that stopped the second plane from hitting the Empire, from the World Trade Center. I mean, and then he runs to become mayor. And the reason how he stopped it was he talked to the plane because he's got these powers that he can talk to machinery. Ugh. Like, are you kidding? Like, what are you doing? He also wrote this amazing um, God, I forget the name of it. He did it with Joshua Middleton. It was like the Lions of um,
Oh, no, no. No, the Pride of Baghdad
Pride of
is
Baghdad.
with not Middleton, it's with another artist who
Nico
he just
Henrichs.
did The Spectators or whatever it's called, his newest graphic novel. I actually saw the guy at New York Comic Con.
It's
They did a
Nico Henrichs.
Substack comic together. So it's very pornographic.
Really?
I forget the name of the artist, sorry. But he also did a great 5-issue miniseries involving it was a Cavalier and Clay characters, I believe,
Escapist.
for
Yeah.
Dark Horse. He did a great Doctor Strange comic, I think, called The Oath.
Oath.
He did a
Which
great
Benedict Cumberbatch held up in a picture taken at JHU Comics
right,
while he was
right,
filming Doctor Strange.
right. He did Brian K. Vaughan also wrote, well, Saga is his most recent thing, which is great.
The Fiona
It's
Staples.
kind of like his Star Wars in a way, with Fiona Staples. Um,
Did you ever
uh,
see The Private Eye with Marcos Martin?
I haven't, and I think I read it, and that was good. He does a lot of Oath. Wait, that Private Eye was his. Yes,
Yes.
I was also now just thinking of Brubaker, but that's Friday and other things that Brubaker's done.
But
Because
he,
also, uh, was it Brian K. Vaughan who started? Like, there's an online publishing concern. Is that Brian K. Vaughan's?
I think so.
Yeah,
I can't remember the name. But did Brian Vaughn do what is the name of that? Did he do Paper Girls with Cliff?
with Cliff Chang. He did Paper
Yeah.
Girls with Cliff Chang.
Like he's
Um,
so like the thing about Vaughn versus say Bendis is that Vaughn is very prolific. Like
yes,
when you notice him everywhere. He's suddenly everywhere. You know what I mean? Whereas Bendis is very, I don't want to say he's calculated, but like he's like not omnipresent, but it's just like, oh, we'll never be without Bendis. Do you know what I mean?
right, right, right,
You can turn your head and you'll find a Bendis comic. Whereas Brian
right.
Vaughan is almost like an event in and of himself.
Well, he also, I mean, he's a real conceptualist. Like Brian Michael Bendis writes a great comic book, and he does come from crime stories and your standard type of, lore and superhero and understanding of that and humanizing that stuff on a street level, right? Brian K. Vaughan can invent worlds that are unique and commercial. Like you know what the idea is in 2 sentences.
Let's not forget, both of them have had their feet in Hollywood as well.
Yep.
Bendis, has helped with all the Marvel movies,
Right.
whether it be like minor or major.
Right.
On worked on Lost. He's worked on. I want to say he worked on one of the Star Wars TV shows, but I can't
I
remember.
think he worked on the Dome, I think it was called, or something for a
Oh,
season
the
or
Stephen
two.
King thing, right?
Stephen King.
Yeah,
Um, it's really hard to pick between the two, but I'm leaning toward Brian K. Vaughan.
I think I would lean towards Bendis only because as much as I like Vaughn's work, I like more of Bendis's work than Vaughn's. If that makes like,
I
see,
know
the
what you
way to
mean,
really
but
measure. It's like I
if you
like
had to pick one work between like if you had to represent
one
Bendis and I had to
between the two.
represent, to me, it is Why the Last Man. As
Right,
much as I love Saga, it is Why the Last Man.
right.
As much as you, and also because you kind of like weren't as into it because it was so multifaceted. I was that blew my mind, that comic book.
Uh-huh. I mean, if I had to pick, I would probably pick Saga for Vaughn,
Right.
and with Bendis, I would probably pick his Daredevil run. And
Yeah, Daredevil,
I think the
definitely.
Daredevil run is better in some ways than Saga. I think Saga is just inventive, and Fiona's, like he brings so much out of Fiona in
Yes.
Saga, like she
And I'm
brings.
sure vice versa. I have a feeling
Yeah,
she
yeah,
comes up with an idea. He's like, I got to write something around. What
yeah. And
is that?
I think like
Like,
when they're both firing on all cylinders, they're not just bringing their A game; they're bringing a game we don't even understand. You know,
right,
like
right.
they're bringing Monopoly when we're used to playing Trouble. Like, you know what I mean? Whereas with Bendis, with the Daredevil run with God, David Mack, Michael, not Michael Gatos because he did Alias. Alias, we haven't even talked about Alias.
Alias, right. Bendis is
No,
Alias,
like
you know?
he created Jessica Jones. Like that's
Yep,
he created character. I've
yep.
also said that I think I mentioned on the show, like I would love to read a Rick Jones autobiography, like in
Hmm.
continuity. And you're like, you
Hmm.
should write it. And I'm like, no, that's Bendis, man. Bendis needs to write it
Uh-huh.
because he
Yeah.
started it in Alias. But I find that Michael was it Michael Lark that did his Daredevil? No, that he was
Oh, it was oh no, and I actually saw him this weekend as
Lark did
well.
Ruben.
He kind of uses photographs a reference. I want to say his last name starts with the letter M. I'm not it's
Alex Maleev.
Alex Maleev. There we go.
Like, yeah, I would definitely pick
Awesome.
Daredevil
Yeah, it's great.
but yeah, so
All
I would
right,
go
then
Bendis.
yeah, you got Bendis, I got Vaughn. This next one's pretty good. Jason Aaron
Oof,
versus Brian Azzarello.
wow, that's not fair. Um, and I think it's not fair only because I feel like Jason Aaron at this point has his output has exceeded um, uh,
Azzarello.
Azzarello. Yeah,
Well, let me set it up a little bit. So
yeah.
Jason Aaron, when I say if I had to pick three comic books to someone who's never read comics and I just want to show the potential of comics, it's skewed a little because of what's missing, obviously. But let's do five, but I'll say three right now. The three I like to pick is All Star Superman by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely. If I had to pick out of all the Jack Kirby stuff, I always say OMAC because there's 8 issues of insanity, like One Man Army Corps. And then I think I say Scout by Jason Aaron and R.M. Guerra plus other artists.
Right.
In fact, I contributed one page to
That's what
Scout,
you should do. Yeah,
you know? And Scout to me started off as an HBO pitch or something that then turned into be one of the most beautiful. When I talk about Task on HBO or The Mayor of Easton and or those kinds of like gritty
Mayor
crime
of Kingstown.
dramas of Kingstown. Sorry.
No, no, Mayor of Easton and
Oh,
Mayor of Kingstown.
Mayor of
I'm just
Kingstown.
throwing
But but
both
I'm
of them out.
saying, yeah, but Mayor of Easton,
Mhm.
let's say. Those kinds of shows. That's Scalped by Jason Aaron and RM Guerra. Like it's insane. And then he's gone on to do a ton of other things like write Thor and I think he wrote Avengers and he's written his own creator and stuff. And then Brian Azzarello is probably the thing that recommends him the most is 100 Bullets or 100 Bullets with Eduardo Riso, and they had their amazing run
Do you
of
know what's
comics.
funny about those two books, Scalped and 100 Bullets? They are both easily distilled to a one sentence like log line pitch.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like Native American undercover, you know, the other one is, one bullet, or one case of 100, goes to
Yeah, yeah,
random.
100 unmarked bullets that you can use. Uh, yeah, I forget the entire concept, but I remember thinking it was funny because with 100 bullets, I remember thinking that's a cool concept. And then after there was a bunch of stories, I started going, wait, I don't know if this concept works. Like what? And then what he did, Azarello, was there's a whole other thing going on,
Yeah.
kind of, there's a whole other kind of thing happening with these criminals. And so it was a lot of fun.
There are so
Um,
many good characters that came out of that. I think Lano is one of them.
mhm,
Graves is another one.
mhm,
Like they I forget the lady's name, but they all seem to just like they seem to be there just for like a second,
mhm.
like for like one story arc, let's say, but they're so resonant throughout the entire series.
Yeah.
Um, with Jason Aaron, I really like his Punisher run. Like I love
Oh, right. Oh, with the late great
Steve Dillon.
Steve Dillon. I
Yeah.
love those stories. He has a great take on
And
Punisher.
it's so weird because you think Steve Dillon, you think Garth Ennis. And
Right,
the fact and like you're just like, oh, it's sacrilegious. Somebody else would be writing for Steve. No,
right,
not at
right.
all.
Not
Like
at all.
I find like I got to interview, well, not interview, but I at Baltimore Comic Con a couple of years ago, I did a crime and comics panel with
Mm.
Jason Aaron, Greg Rucka, and oh, Jason Latour. Um,
Mm,
like there were all three of them were working like Southern Bastards, um, a couple other ones, like Rucka with Punisher and Daredevil and stuff. So it was a very interesting conversation. And Jason Aaron is so well. You know what I think when I think about Jason Aaron's work? At one point, Alan Moore had come out and lambasted comic books and superheroes, and Jason Aaron like publicly stood up for comic books and superheroes.
right,
You know what I mean?
right.
And it was just like, you know what? That's kind of, the kind of person that we need, like somebody that loves what they do, that's
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
ashamed of, like of what they might have done before. Like just because, it's sour grapes, maybe, on Moore's part. But like I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna stand by Jason Aaron, like from now on. Uh,
Yep.
Azzarello also did a couple of Sergeant Rock books. I think he did one with
Oh, right. He did
Joe
Batman
Kubert.
story where he actually wrote a Batman. I'm trying to remember right now, and they said that he had written it in the script, and Eduardo Rizzo was drawing it, and oh, that's what it was. He wrote it in the script, and it was about to be drawn, or it was drawn or written, and then the editor had to take it out because it was going to be done in the Batman movie, and they I don't know if it was stolen from Azzarello or just a coincidence,
Oh
but
yeah.
basically it was Bruce Wayne's last words to his parents before they got killed. He was being a little fucking brat, a little rich
Oh,
kid, and he says something to the effect of "I hate you." And then the criminal comes, tries to rob him, kills him, and he's haunted by the fact the last thing he ever said to his parents was "I hate you," which also drives him to be Batman.
right.
There's a great moment in the Azzarello Riso Batman where I think a kid maybe has been shot by a guy or something. Like, in other words, it was where it could be taken further. Like, what if Bruce Wayne had been shot by the criminal,
Yeah.
but he survived and his parents have been killed, I think, in the story. And I think Batman's able to get the gun and he knows that the kid wants revenge. I might be totally getting this wrong, but maybe I'm rewriting it in my head. But I feel like the kid either has somehow gotten the gun or Batman has handed the kid the gun in the hospital and has him pointed at Batman so he can shoot Batman so he can get out his rage.
Mm,
And I don't think he does. I think part of it is like, do you pull the trigger or not?
right.
Again, sorry guys if I completely got it wrong. Maybe I'm writing my own little Batman story here. But Azrael had such an interesting take. And also Azarello wrote one of the best Hulk stories ever written is Banner,
Right.
drawn by Richard Corbin. Unbelievable. And Luke Cage, oh my God. He's like, there's a great line where Luke Cage is staring in the mirror in a nightclub at the beginning of the first issue. And like a lady's coming up to him, and or it's just strippers all around him in this club. And he's basically saying how tough he is, how he's a badass, but he's also for hire. And he goes something like, if you got enough money, baby, I'll be your toilet paper. Or something like that. Like so ridiculous.
Ah,
Like
yeah.
it's so crazy.
I
And like, yeah.
I
So,
get the
and I think
feel.
the ending of that is like him and Tombstone are like trying to shoot at each other, and bullets are just bouncing
Bouncing
off of
off.
them, and they're just it's a war that never ends, kind of a thing.
Azarello is so like I don't know how to put it. Like he's so in tune with that kind of dark side of people. You know what I
Yes,
mean? Like he like, and I mean it shows in 100 Bullets, obviously, but like the there's a 70s exploitation flick that just plays in his head. It's 24/7.
totally,
And he's
totally.
married to the nicest person.
Oh,
You
Chilton,
know,
yeah, yeah. Oh no, I don't think they are anymore.
oh, that's a
Sorry,
shame.
I think they have broken up, but I believe they're friendly. And the thing that's great for me as a creator is that both have talked to me about maybe possibly doing a collaboration,
That's great.
which is just blows my mind. This is again almost impossible to pick between the two. I feel like, and this is where it leans into my sensibility. If I had to do the metric of who has more of a heart in their work, I think it's Jason Aaron has brings more heart to his work, and love. Whereas Brian just gets nitty gritty, and yet he gets into the soul of the. So there's the heart and the soul.
Yeah.
I think Brian Azzarello digs deeper into the soul and where Jason's into the heart. And if I had to pick, let's say it was scalped versus 100 bullets, I'm going scalped. So that
I
means I'm
would
going
agree.
Jason Aaron.
Yeah, I would agree with Jason Aaron. Not and then not anything, against um Azzarello, because I just feel like um I feel dirty after I read Azzarello's work. You know what I mean? Like, oh, like I need to take a shower.
I
Whereas,
like that. I
like
like,
Jason Aaron can, like in Scalp, there's a lot of scenes like that. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
a lot of like,
yeah,
oh, like I gotta wash my
yeah,
hands. I got the ink on me.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
ultimately, like there's like this satisfying ending, and
yeah,
you
yeah.
feel relatively good about yourself.
So this next one, I was thinking hard. Like sometimes these are really tough, and I might get it wrong, but this next one's Garth Ennis
Mhm.
versus Mark Miller. And I think the reason why I picked Mark Miller versus Garth Ennis, because Garth Ennis is his own industry. He's amazing, you know. So hey Dan,
Hey, Dan's back.
Dan Goldman's in the house. Um, and I might take a bathroom break and we'll get Dan on here for a minute to talk about New York Comic Con.
Mm.
Um, so we're our versus right now, Dan, is Garth Ennis versus Mark Miller.
Oh,
So
there's no question there.
but well, I know that, but we'll get there. So I mean, there's no question. But the thing is that they both push that violent button, you know, to the hilt, and can get really super gross.
Here's the thing, though. I think Garth doesn't care if he makes you uncomfortable with it. I think
Mm,
Mark Miller is trying to make you uncomfortable, or make you as uncomfortable as he can, but he's still ultimately trying to sell a ticket. And
you're
I know
right.
it sounds like he's a sellout, or
Like
something
he's a
like that.
shill of his
Right.
own.
And I'm not,
But he is a shill. I think he's a
but
shill. That's fine.
but
That's
here's the
okay.
thing. If anything, Mark Miller is a Stan Lee of violence,
Mm,
and
mm,
Garth Ennis does not care. Garth Ennis is a very, he's very, I've been to Garth Ennis's apartment back when he lived,
mm,
in New York anyway. Um, and the thing that I always am stunned by, like when I recall it, two people's houses that I've been to, or apartments or whatever in New York City that I've been to,
mm-hmm.
that I've just, when I looked at where they lived, I was just gobsmacked. Andrew Helfer, who had the Justice League International #1 cover, the original art
Wow.
in his bathroom,
In his bathroom.
of
There you
all
go.
places.
Of
And
course.
the other thing about his apartment was wall to wall, bookshelves that you needed a ladder to access. Like it was
Mm,
huge.
mm-hmm,
It was like
mm-hmm,
being in a library. And
mm,
Garth, his bookshelves, wall to wall Louis L'Amour Western, like novels, like
mm,
the kind
mm-hmm.
of like, old Westerns, like Louis L'Amour and a couple other ones.
Yep. Yep.
Just like, yeah, of course, this Irish guy who grew up in Belfast, who had to, dodge bullets and bombs and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Of course, he would romanticize cowboy.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows in his work when you read Preacher. Like Preacher's a Western,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what
Oh
anyone
yeah,
says. It's
absolutely.
like,
Preacher's a Western. And Preacher like changed the game.
yeah.
I mean, people talk about Sandman. I'm all Preacher, baby.
It's
You know?
what's crazy is that Preacher, this weekend at New York Comic Con, you might have missed this, but there's a Swamp Thing story where Swamp Thing meets Jesus that I think Rick Veitch wrote,
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
and it had been banned for years, and they're
Right.
finally publishing it like next year, I believe. And the
Right.
thing is, you think about the things that Garth Ennis did in the name of God in this
Hmm.
book,
Oh
Preacher.
my God. Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
how do you get away? And
I know.
like just sex detectives. Like, what are you talking about?
I know. It's so, and I get that guy who becomes a penis head, basically,
No, Arseface.
and then there's Arseface. No, there was a guy who had a big cut on his
Oh yeah,
bald head.
custom. Yeah, he carved a,
Reverend Star.
yeah,
That's
hair.
right. Hair Star, right? That's right. And actually, my a friend of mine who started off as a busboy, and then became a lunch waiter and nighttime waiter with me. And when I worked at Nick and Eddie restaurant in Soho back in the day, was also an actor, and later on would move to California work on Breaking Bad as one of the producers, writers, and directors. And then I get a phone call one day. He goes, "Tell me about Preacher." I'm like, "Uh-oh, uh-oh, they're gonna make a TV show, aren't they?" I was like, "You have to do it." In fact, I told them at the time, what you should be doing is Scalped, because I felt Scalped was more sensibility, but you have to do Preacher, you know? And he show ran 4 seasons of Preacher, and I really enjoy it. And I liked how they kind of updated it and changed it, because you can't always
It's
do,
not the
you
same
know,
as the book, obviously, but what
right.
they keep, and let's not forget, Garth Ennis is, as much as Mark Miller is kind of a franchisee of his own with Jupiter's Legacy, which was on Netflix, Hitman, Kick-Ass, and Hit Girl, which had their own movies, uh,
Right,
uh, Kingsman, which are
right.
like some of my favorite movies to watch when I want to do nothing and not think about nothing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Garth also has The Boys, also has the Preacher TV show, also has like Boys has like 2 spin-offs. So Garth is as much, a guy that's making moves, not moves, but making work that moves through Hollywood as well.
Right.
Maybe we're too harsh on Mark Miller, because of how
You know what I would say? Remember
I
how
don't
you
want to
said
say
earlier?
commercial, but how like palatable his violence is.
Well, they both truck in violence, but I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, and Dan, I like your opinion on this too. I would say Garth Ennis hates superheroes and Mark Miller loves them.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
absolutely.
As a shorthand,
Yeah.
and you can tell in their works that Garth Ennis is constantly criticizing the fucking Superman, like to
Well,
the point where he wrote one of the best Supermans ever in The Boys. At least the TV show has.
he also had this book Hitman,
Yeah, I
where
was gonna say, what about Hitman?
Right.
Hitman throwing Tommy Monahan throwing up on Batman's
Oh,
boot.
Hitman. I never read that.
Hitman's
Grab a
great.
chair. Grab
Oh,
a chair.
John
and
McCrae was the
Hitman
artist.
when he has there's a great episode issue, sorry, TV language. There's a great issue with Hitman and Superman on the roof of their building. You know what I'm talking about, Vito?
Yeah.
I think that's one of the best
Oh, that
DC
sounds
series
great.
ever.
As
Yeah.
much
Sounds
as you
great.
think Garth hates Superman, when Tommy meets Superman, there's a kind of almost religious, and Garth is an atheist, so the fact that
Right.
this is just incredible. But there's a kind of a religious experience.
Mm.
Tommy, like, it's almost like Superman earns this respect from a guy who.
Hey, internet.
Hey, everybody. Dan Goleman. He was here last week.
I was already here.
This is the 3rd time he's showing.
Jesus.
How about that?
I think I need
been here
a
the
medal
whole
or a
time.
scout patch or something. Yeah. So I mean, Garth was, he's a Irish Catholic, and like that factors into Tommy Monaghan and Superman ish. It's such a great.
I got to
great
read
story.
that. I've been meaning to read it. Is it
You'll love it.
like 60, probably another 60? All those Vertigos. Was that a Vertigo
No,
book?
No, that was
DC
DC
book. That's why.
Propolis.
That's why it's so. Yeah. So it's totally like when what was it when Gotham City crashed.
Oh,
And they locked
Cataclysm.
everything, like, or No Man's Land.
No Man's.
Like that, I think that crossed over. That was all like it was great. I mean, but it's definitely in DC.
Yeah, I think Garth was writing The Demon
Right.
when
Mm.
the annuals for that year were called New Blood, and there were all these new characters that came out of it.
Right.
Tommy, Hitman was one of those characters that just hit and became his own spinoff.
Right. Right.
He,
Oh,
he wrote The Demon, dude.
Yeah, I know. And did he do the rhyming demon?
I don't believe so, but I can't remember.
Right. Hold on a second. I think I'm being made fun of. Hold on. Oh, wait. We'll get you there. Actually, we tried to do this a week or two ago.
Yeah.
So he just jokingly on my little chart here, verses,
Mhm.
said Dan Goleman X, because I'm writing X as my verses.
Um,
Who would Dan Goleman's verses be? And do you have a thought?
I don't have a thought.
Dan
That's
Goleman.
obnoxious. I don't have a thought.
It is, but I couldn't even think about one for me.
neither one.
Or if I did, everyone else would win. Like there wasn't like a fair versus. It didn't seem fair.
I think for Dan, what is the
Whatever
name
you
of that?
drop, we're gonna have to pick it up later.
I mean,
You're gonna pick it up.
I can do a deep cut joke. versus for Dan.
Wow.
You might get this, and you might get this, Dan. I don't know. Vito, ready?
Yep.
Mike Science, Shatter. Did you get it?
No,
Go
I
over your
don't
head.
want to.
So Mike Science, and he was spelled Scaenz or something. If you look him up, he did the one of the first digital comics in the '80s, where it actually looked, the artwork did almost look like zeros and ones, and he had a character named Shatter. If you look it
I
up,
remember that. That was published as a
That
graphic
sounds
novel.
very.
And it had like foil on the cover.
that I don't remember that part, but
That
we have
sounds
to look
vaguely
it up.
familiar. Yeah.
I think it was an epic comic.
It was like, or Pacific or something. It was like one of those.
Yeah,
like,
I've seen that. Yeah.
And okay, so
Because there were a couple of 80s digital comics. There was an Iron Man one.
I remember that.
There was something called Night and the Enemy.
I think
There
I
was
read
a
that.
Batman Digital Justice.
Oh, really?
There were a couple of them that
Yeah.
were
Oh,
like,
that might have been like after, like he was the one that, like, I think he's the first one to like attempt doing something, digitally, but with.
But I mean,
Yeah.
just so to infer from that, and I don't mean to.
Oh, and obviously Dan works digitally,
Right. So
mostly.
that's
the.
But that's so what I'm gathering is that that's what you see.
No. Because what we have to talk about is more so is your sensibility. Just like Vito has a sensibility, I have a sensibility, and I'm trying to think. Well, honestly, and I would never do a versus, but it's more Grant Morrison. I mean, his.
That's a good one.
Grant Morrison.
Sure.
Yeah, because you truck in metatext.
Yeah.
I think. Art wise, I had to look him up because I couldn't remember his name, but he did a book with Rosario Dawson, and he was I think he was a Gaijin Studios guy. Tony Chastain was
Chastain. I have to look him up.
Yeah, he's got a very I think Dan and he have like a very similar approach, if not a similar style, but I think they have a very similar approach to their art, like where it's kind of not super photorealistic, but like enough that you get gesture, So that Tony Chastain was who I was thinking. Dan.
Now, would he be more of a contemporary? Because that's another thing I try to think about. Is who's
I would say.
Oh, okay. So around the same, growing up.
Yeah,
same
we all.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, do you have a thought of a particular? No,
I'm gonna take the fifth. But I'm curious to see whatever if it ever comes up in a future episode.
Yeah,
I would.
We'll have to write that one down and work it out. But going back to Garth and Ennis and Mark Miller, like, I mean, the answer is always it's hard to beat Garth Ennis ever.
I've always, like there's a book by Mark Miller called Nemesis that I love. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
It is stupid in all the best ways. Like it is what I when somebody saw me reading it at Hanley's, they're like, "Why are you reading that?" And I'm like, "Because it's a dumb superhero comic that I don't have to think about. Like I can just it's Batman as a bad guy, done. And Miller's very good with those high concepts too. Like he can distill all those things down to like one thing,
He also works with great artists, so it's like, it's like when you work with Frank Quitely, I don't care who wrote it.
Right.
You have to get there are some artists that, like, I always say I'm always for the writer, but Frank Quitely's art is writing. It's beautiful writing.
He's got another comic that I think is very underrepresented when people talk about his his work. Actually, two. One is Huck, Huck. Which is like a Superman comic. And the other one is, I want to say it's called The Black Order, and it's about these like magicians that almost operate like superheroes or spies. Like I think it's called The Black Order. I'll look it up before we cut out. But like I'd still as much as I find Mark Miller's work to be entertaining, but I find Garth Ennis's work to be resonant,
irreverent. Like it's it's great.
Yeah, Vito, do you like Superman?
I love Superman.
So I think Mark Miller used to be the writer for a couple of years on the Superman animated comic.
Yes,
which is excellent, and no one ever talks about it.
Yeah,
but
those
are those are maybe better than the mainline Superman comics.
I have a couple of those like in my collection. They're
really strong,
really good, one and done. Like they're so like
before he was doing creator-owned stuff, I feel like he got his chops doing Superman animated. That's my take, but
I'm gonna run to the bathroom. I'm gonna put Dan in the hot seat so
Okay.
he can talk a little bit about New York Comic Con because we got a before and we have an after now, and
Wow.
then maybe you can start talking about Baltimore, like panels and whatnot. A little bit.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Let me grab my phone because I don't know.
Oh yeah, grab your phone, get your information, and then I think we're gonna end in like within 10 minutes, and then I'll save the next batch for us.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
Let's
So
get
actually, it ends good here, and then it's going to be interesting beginning next time. I'll be right back.
So is this the hot seat right here?
Get the hot seat.
yeah, that's the big one.
Ooh, the hot seat's still warm. I feel like maybe Dean had some chili for dinner.
That way you can see the
Very warm. It's like unnaturally warm.
Come on.
unnaturally warm.
So what would you like? What would you like to do?
Well, so you were paired up with Dean in Artist Alley.
Yeah, Dean and I we're sharing a table, and yeah, it was fun. What can I say about it?
What was the last? Do you remember the last time you were at New York Comic Con and like if you tabled?
Oh yeah, it was over a decade ago. Easy. Wow. I mean, that we had the whole like pandemic time warp, but I haven't lived here in a while. I don't live here now. And the last stretch that I did live in New York City, I didn't go to the Comic Con because I wasn't actively putting out books, and now I got one. So it was fun. It was fun. For me, the selfish highlight was just watching people see what I'm doing for the first time, and I think that people, the first reaction to my book is surprise.
Well, it's because
like, wow, it's they're like, this is a work. This is not like a trade paperback. This is you made like a complete work here, and that's very gratifying because that was the idea. It's fun to watch people because my art style is not traditional. And that used to be a big deal. It clearly is still a big deal to Dean because he was talking about me being a digital, comparing me to some computer shit, but like, but I feel that like most people, that's not really what they fixate on anymore. They're like, oh, this is interesting, or this is immersive, or this is like, wow, this doesn't look like anything else,
Mm-hmm.
And then when I tell them it's all digital, I think they're very happy. And very, so that, that was cool. That was a great time. I met a lot of great people. I'm not going to do any shout outs.
No, that's
know who you are.
Did you reconnect with anybody from say the last 10 years that you haven't seen? Or
yeah, there was like I was saying to Dean this morning or this afternoon, there was a lot of like interesting reconnections from like old Activate crew that I was not expecting.
Right.
That was really nice, really lovely, actually. Kind of, people I hadn't seen or talked to in a really long time. I think that was a highlight. Mm-hmm. And then I could tell you a moment that meant a lot to me. Was putting on the way out of the con the first night, putting my book in front of Colleen Duran, because I'm a big fan of her. Specifically of A Distant Soil, which she self-published. That's like her big, her magnum opus. That's apparently going to be finished soon, which is I can't wait. But putting I guess like the first book of my magnum opus, if you will, in front of her and having her tell me that it was like, this is really well done. And then I was like kind of vibrating even until the next morning. That was very meaningful for me. I respect her a lot as a creator, as an artist, as an entrepreneur. Even like she's really significant in my constellation. So that meant a lot to me.
Yeah, good. Coming out of it, do you think like what are your so coming out of New York and getting ready for Baltimore? What are your thoughts in terms of red light properties and how presenting it to the audience there? I love that. That is genius.
You want to hear a funny story? So
well, we'll say what it is because it's a podcast.
No, it's a podcast. That's right. So I live Let me get my face in there. So I'm I live in Florida right now, and there's this very aggressive realtor in our neighborhood, and she keeps sliding these flyers of hers under our door. She really wants to sell our condo, and that's base. And so when I got one of her flyers, I was like, this is a gift, this is like. So I just copied the layout completely, and I just made it as though my characters had made this flyer.
Sure.
It's fun. Anyway, your question about Baltimore. I mean, I'm on a bunch of panels. So is Dean, and we're on a couple panels together even. And as far as, I mean, I again, I'm looking forward to, between New York and Baltimore. I'm going to do the same thing I did, but I think that the con is smaller. The con is definitely more comic focused. And I think I imagine, I haven't been to Baltimore in a minute, but I think the crowd is going to be real different. And
Where
again, like comic focused. So I'm
I
looking
don't,
forward to that.
I don't know that this is a question you can answer, but I always find myself recharged after doing a convention, as not so much the New York Comic Con, but Baltimore. I always find myself recharged. Where is your brain right now as a creator, like in terms of the industry? Like, where are you? Like, do you kind of see where you fit? Do you see? Um,
No,
that's
no, I know where I fit, and it's where I've always fit, which is in my own patch.
that's
And that's
fair.
what I'm focused on. Like, I don't sell my book in comic stores. I don't, there's a couple bookstores that carry me. That may change, but it's not my focus. I don't work with a distributor. Um, I don't care about the industry. I don't think it exists. And if it does, it's failing. And so I think it's really important for creators in 2025 to have to be cancelable, to have control over who can see your work and who, and and where and how, and to be able to dictate price points and value, your own value.
Hmm.
I think it's really important. I think that if the sort of like algorithmic social media smashing into the world of publishing has taught us anything, it's that. And I think that if you are reliant on distributors, if you're reliant on publishers, you're reliant on realtors to not just validate you, but to allow you to exist, I think there's probably a target on your back that you can't see.
I am looking forward to hopefully doing this show next week with you still around and seeing if that changes any.
It
Like,
won't. It won't,
well, you know what I
because
mean? Like,
what I'm talking about is not going to be like a live or die by the end of the show next week.
right.
It's a slow burn, and it's an organic growth. And I can tell you that I launched my book in June at TCAF, and it's been a slow bubble, but the trend is upwards every week.
Mhm.
And there are people learning about it. A friend of mine, as I was walking to meet my buddy just now, that I just came back from having drinks with, a friend of mine in Austin, Texas, sent me a Marvel podcast, like a Marvel based
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah.
They were talking about red light properties.
Interesting.
And I was like, what? He's like, have you seen this? I was like, no, I haven't. And I listened to the, like, a minute 45 where the guy was gassing up what I was doing. And I was like flying with joy. It was wonderful. So like my point is like it's about not just not just having control over how it works, but like you're the one that, I mean, like if you do the work and what am I saying? Two drinks. Thank you, internet. Um,
You're welcome.
but
Well, if I could push back a little bit, or not push back, but add to,
yes, sir.
which is,
Ladies and gentlemen, Dean Haspel.
but I do think like, I'm attempting where you're at. I don't even think I'm where you're at in terms of the philosophy of making comics.
Mhm.
Because I'm also, I want to be recognized by, I still weirdly want to be recognized by Marvel and DC, when I'm allergic to, and I read some of their comics and watch their TV shows and movies and stuff. And it's just an old kind of habit, as it were, but also to be where you're at is to really go all in on you, right?
Yeah.
I think we were talking about Marty Keene earlier today,
Mhm.
about how he's monofixated on his library, his
Monofixated or focused?
focused, fine. That's fine. I'm just using it's the same idea. And how I'm much more of a communal guy, and I feel like I don't exist without allies, without collaborations.
I don't.
You know
what I mean?
and you don't exist. You have to as a writer.
Exactly.
So I'm just saying that, not that it's a luxury, but like you have to really believe in yourself. And I think we live in a world right now where it's hard to believe in yourself. And we're being taught every day, not we, I think younger people are like, you got to believe in yourself. And that's a good message and a good practice. But you also have to earn it and get there.
I agree with everything you just said. I think as far as believing in yourself, like you have to earn that. Like that's subjective.
No,
I've been making comics like not just on a blog, but professionally for 20 years this year. And maybe not all of that 20 years, but like, I think I'm pretty good now.
I think you're great. And I think if I've had a chip on my shoulder. I think Vito's had a chip on his shoulder. I think you've had a chip on your shoulder. And I also, when you think about certain creators, you think about their oeuvre and who they are and what they present. And like I'm like sometimes when I think of what the both of you, I just said it. I think sometimes I think about the chip that might be on my shoulder too, because I think that you guys know that and sometimes present that way.
What do you mean the chip on the shoulder?
Like why didn't they understand that I was great early on? Okay. It's like, well, maybe you were fucking great early on. I know I wasn't. I don't even know if I'm great now.
Yeah, I don't either. And I but like that's kind of the North Star is like, don't you want like everything you do to be better than the last thing you did?
Yeah.
Like that's the practice.
Yeah.
That's it.
The problem with me is that I started so freaking high with a Batman comic. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like you think it's gonna always be that every time. That not so much your quality, but that your validation is always going to be that or up. And
that's what we're talking about is validation. In a lot of ways.
It's
where
exactly
do you get it from? Are
right.
you getting it from Batman? Or are you getting it from Red Light Properties?
From yourself.
Or for yourself. And in a lot of ways, a lot of creators in comics assign their persona to a Batman, a Spider-Man, or Marvel DC, because that's
if I reach this. Yeah, if I
then you're great.
I made it. But like me,
like to do Batman, like that's not what I want.
Right.
It's funny, like, and I've said this a million times, I never wanted to write, any of those, Batman, Wolverine, any of Superman, whatever, it's just the opportunities that have been presented to me, like I took advantage of, but I was never good enough to take advantage of that opportunity and like parlay it into something else. I think now, though, I'm more focused on myself than I've ever been.
Hey, you know what? Laserman, okay? I'll talk about Laserman. Have you ever met Laserman?
I'm not sure.
Laserman is a very particular character. So, in other words, when you can say to your parents or your family or friends, I wrote Batman, everyone understands what that means.
Right.
But if you were to say, I just wrote Laserman and drew it, they'd be like, what are you talking about? Okay. And like, so, and I could say, oh, I did Billy Dog, my mommy, daddy, or whatever. They're like, oh, good for you, Dean.
Yeah.
So there is this weird validation, but Laserman is only doing Laserman.
Yeah.
Okay. And yes, he is taking from the mythology of comics and making his own character and is always, I mean, he's someone to admire in a lot of ways. We were talking about that too, Dan. Like,
no, I think he's awesome. Yeah, I really do. I bought all his comics.
I think I know him. I can't remember his name though, but yeah.
Laserman Comics on Instagram.
Yeah,
something like maybe there's an underscore in there somewhere.
Definitely read them. So Dean, it looks like the clock, the wall on the head.
Oh, yeah, yes. All right, we'll say goodbye to Dan, and then okay, go ahead. What?
I want to say Magic Order is the Mark Miller story that I was talking about.
Oh, got it.
Okay,
Magic
cool.
Order. Very good.
Good night, YouTube. I'm getting kicked out. Bye.
Thanks, Dan. I'm going to just quickly show you a couple of things I got because I didn't get much at Comic-Con.
Oh, what
did I get here really quick? Well, our guy Adam McGovern had an ash can of a comic called the Night Brigade.
That is not
And
an
like,
ash can. That is a
I know it's Mixam printed,
wow.
uh, and he's selling this idea to publishers because I don't think he's going to be working with this artist anymore. It's a whole story, it's a whole thing, but it's a beautifully produced kind of like what if of a comic.
Mhm.
It's really cool. And then Charles Featherolf is in here,
In the
and
same
a whole
book?
bunch of cartoons. Huh?
In the same book?
Yeah, in the same book.
Oh
So
wow.
Fred Van Lente and Ryan Dunleavy just did a Jack Kirby comic
Back at it again with the white vans, I see.
with the it's a series called Sketches on the Sidewalk. I believe Paul Levitz and Howard Chaykin did one recently, or it's coming out soon, about Jewish neighborhoods or culture. There's this what do you call it? Public domain character
Let me see.
named Blackout. Okay. Way old school.
Yeah.
Right? And what's his name? Gave this to me. Really cool guy. Oh God, is his name in here? Please let there be his name. Well, Don Rico is the creator of Blackout, or it was in Captain Battle Comics. Well, maybe for the show notes, oh wait, no. Oh, Devin Whitlock. Devin Whitlock,
Okay.
who has a really good Substack about comics, is perpetuating the promise of Blackout. And then two other quick comics. Oh, you have your book here. Oh, we've shown it before, right? Red Light Property. We've shown it. We can show it again. Scumburbia. By a cool cartoonist named Sam Grinberg, does a comic called Scumburbia. And oops, I don't know if you can see here. It's hard to see.
It's a weird for the podcast listener. It's a very weird, almost Rick and Morty type of look.
It's like The Simpsons meets Charles Burns in a weird way.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I think Whitlock bought my book.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he bought my book.
And then two more. Talked to Fife, and he gave me a copy of Round 8 of Copra, the death of Copra. The finale to the series. It's a beautiful book. Lightweight. It's just that cool kind of pulpy paper. And then, of course, we've talked about our man Dan Goldman.
Our man Dan.
With Red Light Properties, this beautiful tome. Pretty thick. I mean, it's a good doorstop. For real, though. Like, it's a beautiful doorstop.
It'll kill a cat.
It's good for something, right?
It's good for something. So those are some gets. And I don't know if I mentioned this one. It's called Confirmed.
No.
And what's cool about this comic book, and then we'll go to sleep. I promise, Vito. I was at a Ithacon, two Ithacons ago, and there was a writer walking around looking for an artist to draw his comic. And I went, oh, I was just talking to this guy over here. He might need a writer to work on a project. And I basically shepherded between a writer and an artist, Hobbs Houlihan and Keith Haugen. Wow, is it really Hobbs Houlihan? That's what it says. Hobbs Houlihan. And it's a really cool looking comic, man. It's called Confirmed. And I don't know. It's like, one of those like 16-page type proof of concept ideas. So whatever, those were the couple of things I got.
You're part Jewish. You were a matchmaker.
I was look at me, huh? Yeah. I learned it from my godmother, Shelley Winter.
I was gonna say,
all right, Vito.
All right, Dean.
We did it.
What 40?
Number 40.
Number 40 in the can.
That's right.
12 more weeks, and we've done a year.
Done a year.
That's insane. All right, man. Have a good night. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We will catch you next week with a post-Baltimore Comic-Con review and more verses and more of whatever this is.
Right.
We're still trying to yay. Wait, does Dan know how to do it now?
He kind of did it.
Yes.
Kind of did it.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.